All right, we are back. We live for another episode of Mind Your Body and Soul, the Healthy Podcast, the best, healthiest this podcast we got out now. So I am Joseph. I'm one half of your host. I am Joseph Ward, and as always, I'm joined by the magnificent Mr. Mathias Sweet. What's up, Mathias?
What's going on, Joe? How y'all doing out there today?
And everything is going good on this good Monday. We got to start this week off right.
That's right.
So in starting this week off right, we had to get a good guest on this thing. You know what I'm talking about? Now, before we see, I like to do cliffhangers. I like to get people excited and then bring them back. So, so before we introduce our lovely guest, just want to make sure people, if it's your first time watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, we like to thank you and welcome you to Mind Your Body and Soul, the Healthy Podcast. We release a podcast every Wednesday, and we talk about all things health. And our goal is to help create the healthiest versions of ourselves and our listeners. Because, yeah, we are here conducting these interviews, but we're here learning as well. So, like I say, the goal is to be the healthiest versions of ourselves. Remember that Mind Your Body and Soul is available on our website at www.nmcpodcast.com or neighborhoodmedicalcenter.org/NMC podcast, but it's just easy to do nmcpodcast.com. You can always, subscribe, like, comment, and subscribe to us on YouTube. So subscribe to the Neighborhood Medical Center YouTube channel. And we have our videos for this podcast. Watch these podcasts, watch it all the way through. Subscribe, comment, share. Let us know all that. Hit that like button because, YouTube and all these things got something called an algorithm, right? And when you like, comment, and subscribe, that helps that algorithm and it helps us continue to be found. So help us help you. Remember, we're on Anchor FM, anchor.fm. You can check us out on Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, all your top podcast platforms. We are available. So check us out every Wednesday as we deliver this good information for you. Ain't that right, Mathias?
That's right. That's right.
Right. So got that out the way. Our guest this week, I'm gonna do it a little different. Mathias, our guest this week, when you think about our guest, what's the first word come to your mind?
The first word that come to mind is energetic.
Energetic. Okay.
Energetic.
For me, it's accomplishments. Cause she go out here and she be doing her thing, right?
She do.
So some of you are like, well, who is this young lady y'all talking about? Well, her name is Dr. Danyelle Williams, right? She's the Pharmaceutical Program Manager with the Florida Department of Health, the Bureau of Public Health Pharmacy. So she's doing her accomplishments. She's doing her thing, right? She manages the statewide pharmaceutical program and outreach clinical programs. In 2011, she graduated from Florida State with a BS degree in exercise science. In 2015, she received her Doctor of Pharmacy degree from the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University's College of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences. In 2017, she completed a 2-year pharmaceutical residency practice fellowship. I added so many words in there, but a 2-year pharmacy fellowship with Florida A&M University, specializing in HIV Management. She's currently completing coursework for a Master of Public Health degree at FAMU College of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences and the Institute of Public Health. She serves as a member of the Florida Department of Health HIV/AIDS Section Medication Formulary workgroup and is certified with the American Academy of HIV Medicine and HIV Pharmacist. A proud member of Delta Sigma Theta. You know we like the Deltas over here. We like the Deltas. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome a good friend of ours, a person who's an asset in our community, somebody that you're really gonna learn a lot about. So once again, Dr. Danyelle Williams.
Woo!
Yeah. We need to get some hand claps in here.
We do. We need to add that in here.
Right, you know.
I have my pharmacy intern in here that can add to the hand clap. So hopefully you can hear that.
There you go.
Okay. That'll work.
Shout out to the pharmacy intern.
Yes, Miss Kristen Harris in here supporting me.
All right, Ms. Harris.
That's what's up. You're gonna learn a lot, Miss Harris, because you got a good person right there with you. So
You got one of the best teachers that you're gonna have out there.
right.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity. It's been a long time since we've been able to get together and collaborate on different things, but I do appreciate you guys bringing me on. And so I don't know if you guys know, or even those who are listening, but October is American Pharmacist Month. Did you guys know that?
Well, happy Pharmacist Month.
Happy Pharmacist Month, but even better, today is actually Women's Pharmacist Day. Today's conversation that much more special because I get to talk to you guys about, what it is that I do as a pharmacist and be able to share my profession with you all. And so before we start, I wanted to do a quick little shout out, if that's okay with you guys.
That's fine. Do your thing.
In honor of Women's Pharmacist Day, I wanted to recognize all of the women pharmacists that are out there, my colleagues, my sisters. Today is our day. And so I celebrate you all. I thank you for, what you do for your patients and for your community. And so for those that also don't know, women make up more than half of the pharmacist workforce. And so it's an extreme honor to serve along with my other women colleagues. And so again, thank you. I love you all. I hope today is full of lots of love and little to no stress, if that's possible. Right. But I definitely wanted to shout out all of my women pharmacists out there today. So shout out.
All right.
Yeah, that's what's up. So shout out to everybody, like she said, who doing their thing in the pharmacy field. Shout out to all the women in the pharmacy. We have to make sure we are celebrating everybody in our community, but especially celebrating our women. So as men, we try to make sure that we go above and beyond in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Mathias, you got the first question, man. Let's do this thing. Let's learn a lot more about Dr. Williams.
So Dr. Williams, can you tell us and our listeners some background information about yourself, which you kind of already did, but can you tell us your inspiration behind you becoming a pharmacist? So just let us know what made you really want to go into pharmacy.
Of course. So as Joe mentioned, I graduated from Florida State University in 2011. And interestingly enough, I actually wanted to go to FAMU my entire life. Going to that, in my mind, was not an option. Mm-hmm. And so I was a younger child, as most kids do. They think about what it is that they want to do when they grow up. Some people have dreams of becoming a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher or an educator, or I want to be a professional football player or a professional NBA player or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like I said, I went through that same phase as well. I really had no idea what I wanted to do when I grew up. And it wasn't until I got to high school and really kind of lasered in on psychology. And so I had this fascination, and I still have it to this day. And I used to be obsessed with dreams. And so I wanted to study dreams. I wanted to learn why we dream, what's the meaning behind dreams. I was really big into interpreting dreams. And I was so obsessed that I pretty much trained my mind how to remember a dream when I woke up so that I could, grab for my dream encyclopedia book that I had by my bed. I'll admit that I had a dream book by my bed. And so I used to wake up from my dream and immediately look it up and try to figure out, what does it mean to dream about falling out of the sky? Or what does it mean to miss the bus? Or what does it mean to be bit by a dog? And I just was really curious to understand that. And so when I wanted to go to college, I wanted to explore the world of psychology and maybe get into some research. And so I remember in high school, as I mentioned, that's when I really started to identify going to the psychology field. And one of my family members asked me one day, what do I want to major in college? Which was a fair question. As you're entering the end of your high school career, you pretty much get asked that question almost every day. What are you going to major in school? What are you going to do in college? What do you want to do with your life? What do you want to have a career in? And I told this person that I wanted to study psychology. And I'll never forget, this person basically said in so many words, mind you, this is my family member. They said in so many words that I'll never be able to get a job in psychology because that field is dominated by people who don't look like me. And you find a job that has a lot of opportunities for you and one that you can make a lot of money out of. And so hearing that from my family member, this isn't just a stranger or someone that I don't know, this is someone that helped raise me in essence. And hearing them say that was very hurtful. And this person, as I mentioned, they helped raise me, so their opinion meant a lot. This was someone that was probably going to be providing financial support throughout school. This was someone that I've always been able to lean on growing up. And so their opinion really mattered to me. And to hear them say that the one thing that I found that I was passionate about basically was not going to work for me, I was devastated and really didn't know what to do. And so then I started to think, well, maybe I need to switch. Maybe he's right. Maybe I need to find something else out there that I could do that I could be good at, that I wouldn't have to struggle to find a job. And maybe, you know, I could find something that kind of does interest me. Maybe not as much as psychology, but maybe it's something that I can actually like. You know, I didn't want to just have a job just to have a job. I wanted to be able to do something that I could enjoy and get something out of. And I thought about going into the medical profession. Doctors make what I thought a lot of money. I was like, I could be a doctor and be rich. I knew that it took a lot of work, but I didn't think would ever be a shortage in doctors. As long as people continue to get sick, there's an opportunity to find a job. And so I think that probably lasted maybe a couple of days because once I started researching what doctors do and just thinking about my experience going to the doctor as a kid, you know, doctors, they do a lot of stuff that I didn't want to do. Like they end up having to touch sick people and they have to look at a lot of snot and blood and all types of body fluids. And with me being a very squeamish person, I didn't think it would be good for me to become a doctor and be throwing up on my patients who are coming to see me. So I was like, yeah, the doctor thing, it sounds great, but that's just not going to work for me. So then someone asked me, well, what about pharmacy? And I'm probably not the only one, but I didn't know anything about pharmacy. I know there's CVS and I know there's Walgreens, and my mother used to work at what's used to be called Eckerd's. And so I knew a pharmacy was there, but I didn't really understand what a pharmacist did. And so I looked into it a little bit, and I saw that FAMU had, you know, the #1 pharmacy school in the nation. And so like I mentioned, I always wanted to go to FAMU, so I felt like that was the perfect match for me. And so I decided to look into going the pharmacy route. Now, I mentioned I didn't really have any plans on going to Florida State. Some things kind of happened to where I ended up going to Florida State, which I'm grateful for, don't get me wrong. I was able to graduate in 4 years and get my Bachelor's of Science degree. And so I do owe Florida State that opportunity. But when I got to FAMU and got into pharmacy school and really dove into the program, you know, I realized that, hey, I may not have necessarily wanted to do this initially. My main focus was to find something that I was passionate about, like psychology. And so I went into pharmacy purely because I didn't want to let my family down. I didn't want to disappoint them. But what I've learned in the short pharmacy career that I've had so far is that I found something that I can make a difference. And when I
Okay.
come into my office every day, when I make the decisions that I make on behalf of the Florida Department of Health for the patients that we serve, you know, this is where I need to be. So it didn't start out that way, but I'm glad to be able to sit in the seat that I'm in and be able to, you know, make a difference in my community.
Right. I appreciate you sharing your journey. One, because there are a lot of people who will look at you and think that, okay, you just came out of the womb and everything was together, and not understanding that it takes work, it takes sacrifice, you're going to take some losses, all these things are going to happen. But if you believe in yourself, you have a focus and you keep working towards it, you can be what you want to become. You can achieve those specific goals, even if somebody may tell you that this can't happen. It's you just keep moving on, and like, you are in a great place now. You are doing amazing things, and you are able to help a lot of people. And you know, we think you cool anyway. So.
And the other thing I like though is it lets kids know now that they don't have to have that definitive answer right at the end of school. Like, once you get accepted to school, a lot of people don't understand. They think they're going, I'm being a pharmacist, I'm going straight to pharmacy school. That's not the case. You're going to get your basic information from your math, reading, writing, arithmetic, all the other things, your little elective classes. So you might have an idea when you first graduate, say, I'm going into business. But once you get there, something else might spark your interest. And sometimes we always don't follow our dreams, and we don't follow the things that we want to do. But sometimes we got to look at our dreams and say, is this really going to be realistic? Is this something that's going to help me really make a future for myself? Because some people say, I'm going out to be exercise science. Like, I'm not going to do anything with exercise, period. You know what I'm saying? Trying to get healthy and stuff. I'm trying to get healthy with different things, but me literally going out exercising, probably not going to happen. But I can't say I'm going to go to school to be a coach or somebody to do like a personal trainer. That's not going to help. I might want to physically in my mind and mentally, but it just lets people know that everybody is human and everybody is out there, and everybody can say, hey, I might have these dreams, but I need to do what's more realistic for me, that there are other options.
Right.
So I really like that about you. And thank you for being open and honest about your whole, like, your career journey. Because a lot of people do face that fact that parents and loved ones and people who have a little bit more influence over them are going to say, I don't think that's a good idea. But they never really tell you the reason, the logic behind it. And that's what I like.
So with that being said, I do have this question. With that being said, knowing what you know now about the world, your matriculation through college, and we have a lot more information about the psychology field and things. Looking back now, what are your thoughts about the psychology field or your place? Or do you ever think that, well, maybe I could have still taken this path?
So once I got to college and I started looking around to see the people that were majoring in psychology, it wasn't as dominated by a particular race or ethnicity as I thought, you know, growing up. After talking to my family members, very diverse. Even the individuals that work at neighborhood medical centers, those are individuals that look like me. And so I don't regret changing the course that I decided to take, just because even in pharmacy, there's a way to bridge that gap between pharmacy and psychology. There's pharmacists. I have a classmate of mine who ended up doing a residency in mental health. And so she was able to learn about mental disorders, mental illnesses, and you also learn about the treatment aspect of it. So there is a way to incorporate your interest in pharmacy. And so I definitely think going the pharmacy route allows me to really explore more of the medical side and really be able to see, you know, what treatments are available out there and how you can really help your patients. So it really just, honestly, thinking about it, I wouldn't change anything at all. And I also, you know, would like to add that even though I didn't go into the psychology route, it's also important to really think about, you know, you're not always going to succeed the first time you try something.
Right.
And interestingly enough, I actually applied for pharmacy school my junior year of being an undergraduate student at Florida State, and I didn't get in. And at that time, I really considered, okay, well, maybe I really was supposed to go into psychology. Maybe this pharmacy thing was not supposed to work. Maybe I was just forcing something that was not intended for me. Maybe that's not what God wanted me to do. And I really just kind of started reeling around in my head, what am I doing? I failed. I didn't get in. I could have given up at that point. I could have just, completely changed gears and went back the direction that I wanted to go in originally. But I decided to stick the course. And I finished my undergraduate degree the next year. I applied again to the College of Pharmacy. That second year was absolutely everything, because I took the time to study and to learn from my mistakes and find out what is it that I didn't do the previous year, what were they looking for that I didn't have to offer, what information could I learn more about the program, because one of the things that, in any interview that you go in, you want to understand who it is that you're interviewing for. You want to know something about the company or something about the organization. And so just to say that I've always wanted to go to FAMU since I popped out of my mother is not a good answer, even though that's great. But when you're in an interview setting, you really have to show that you're serious about it. And so I took that year and I really just searched deep down, and I did all the behind the scenes work that I could do so that second year when I was applying, I was ready. And I was not going to let them tell me no. I was going to call and harass and show up and knock on doors and do whatever I needed to do to get in. And so again, just thinking about successes and failures, everything is not always going to be handed to you on a silver platter. Sometimes you're going to make mistakes. Sometimes you're going to fail. Sometimes you're going to have to take the longer route. But as long as you don't give up, as long as you stick the course, you'll get to where you want to be ultimately.
Definitely. Definitely. So that definitely goes to the next question. So basically, people know a pharmacist, they pass pharmacy, out the medicine, but can you give us what the overall look of what a pharmacist is? Because I know, and Joe knows from working in the healthcare field, y'all do a lot more than just count pills and pass pills. Can you give a little bit more of elaboration on what actually a pharmacist does? Because it's more than just passing pills.
Right.
And so the passing of the pills that are given out medication part is the last step if you think about the process of, what happens when you get the prescription, you go to the pharmacy. But there's a lot of things that happen before that. There's a lot of responsibilities of the pharmacist and making sure that you as the patient understand the what, the where, the when, and the why. So the first thing would be to understand what it is that you're taking. A lot of people may not be able to pronounce their drug names. There's some very complicated drug names that are out there. And so that's okay. You're not necessarily going to be able to pronounce everything, but do you at least understand what it's for? How can you describe it? So for example, people may refer to their blood pressure medication as that's my water pill, or maybe their diabetes medication, they could refer to it as, well, that's my pill for my sugar. And so the next thing is just understanding how you should take the medication. This is called the dose. So it's very important for patients to make sure that they're taking the correct dose so that you can make sure that you have the appropriate amount of the drug in your body so the body is able to respond to that particular medication. The next thing is the where, which is the route. Some medications, as you all know, may be taken by the mouth or orally, which means you have to swallow it, or you can rub it on your skin, which we would say is a topical application, and the skin actually will absorb the medication. Right. You can inhale medications through your nose. So think about your nasal sprays for those who have allergies during allergy season, like fluticasone. Or you can inject your medication, which would be like your insulins. And that's going to be typically the fastest way for a medicine to get into your body is through injection. And then the next thing is the when. So when should you take your medications?
Right.
This refers to the frequency. So some drugs should be taken once a day, or maybe twice a day, or 3 times a week, or once a month. Should it be taken in the morning, or is it better absorbed at bedtime? Can you take it with food, or should it be taken on an empty stomach? So all of these things refer to what we call medication adherence, which is taking the medication as instructed or as prescribed. And then the last thing is the why. So why should you take the drug? The purpose in medications is to prevent, to treat, to cure, or relieve symptoms. And their objective is to help our bodies get back to homeostasis, which is equilibrium. And so our role as the pharmacist is to explain all of those things and ultimately make sure that it's safe for the patient to take the medication. This means warning you of potential side effects, interactions with other medications. Sometimes your interaction, or sometimes your food, things that you eat, can actually interfere or interact with some of your medications. And then there's also certain medical conditions that also can interact with your drugs as well. And so it's important for all of this information to be shared with your pharmacist so that they can go over those things with you. And then the last thing that I'll say is drugs, as most of us know, and I'm sure you guys know, dealing with patients, are not always cheap. Sometimes they're very expensive. And because of that, patients may not always get their medications filled because they may not necessarily be able to afford it. And so the good thing about a pharmacist is that we can actually help a patient to receive cost affordable medications. So for example, there's medications that are free at Publix. I'm not sure if they still do all of these, but I know at one point they used to give away metformin and some blood pressure medications for free. And then Walmart had the $4 generic list as well. And then also, you know, we have our local FAMU pharmacy with 2 locations on Orange Avenue and Brevard Street. And so they offer reduced pricing medications as well. And so whatever the barriers or the obstacles that may exist, the pharmacist can be able to help the patient work through that, because again, the medications are there to prevent, to treat, to cure, to help whatever the ailment is that the patient has. So we want to make sure that they're able to receive their medications and take them so that they can benefit from them.
Good. I got a question though. So are y'all able to assist certain patients with like the GoodRx cards and the other things that are there as a pharmacist? Or is that something they have to go back to their primary care or their specialist to go back and see how they can help with that medication? Are y'all able to offer them to say, hey, you know, we do have these GoodRx cards. You can go on goodrx.com and look at it and see what's beneficial for you? Are y'all able to do that, or y'all don't do that type of stuff?
So at the pharmacy that I work at, I definitely don't want to speak for all the pharmacies that may have their different policies and rules, but for our pharmacy, it's a closed pharmacy, which I can, you know, definitely explain what that means. But we're very restricted on what we can do. We service patients who don't have insurance or maybe who are underinsured. And so all the medications that we have, we can actually provide them for free, or they're based on a sliding scale. Just depends on what the patient's financial status is. But I would definitely say to, you know, talk to your pharmacist. Like I said, it could vary depending on what pharmacy that you go to. Some may be able to accept that, but for the pharmacy here at the Department of Health, ours are basically going to be already, you know, like I said, either free or extremely discounted.
Okay, and that little follow-up. How can people learn about the free or reduced medicines at the different pharmacies without physically going to the pharmacy?
So I would say to call. I mean, that would probably be the quickest way to get in contact, because there's, you know, different pharmacies have their corporate offices, and some may have certain things that they're able to do and others may not be able to honor that. So I would say to call your pharmacist. The pharmacist is the most accessible health profession out there. Most pharmacies are available between 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And so you can call your pharmacist up, ask them that question. They'll be happy to assist you. The main thing is the pharmacist there, you know, we want to get rid of this idea that we're just pill pushers. And I think that's something that people, I mean, it might just be easy to remember that way, but there's just so much, as we talked about, there's so much that the pharmacist can do and is willing to do and wants to do. So we definitely encourage you to call your pharmacist, talk to them, give him everything with COVID. You know, that might be the best option if you don't want to necessarily go in and be exposed. But definitely call the pharmacist and talk to them about your situation, and maybe they can help you to find different assistance programs that are out there that could, you know, assist you with your medication.
So
I'm going to channel my inner Dr. Foster real quick. She's a person about the flu shot, and now my CMO goes hard about the flu shot and everybody getting the flu shot. Now I see around town that some pharmacies are offering where the pharmacist is giving the flu shot. Can you let the people know it's okay for them to go to the pharmacy and get a flu shot, that they don't have to make the appointment at your primary care office all the time to get a flu shot? But that's one of your roles that y'all are doing, is helping with getting some of the people vaccinated for the different things that are coming out. And it's okay, because a lot of people say, is it okay for me to really go to the pharmacy and get a flu shot? Because they're not a doctor. But they are a doctor, but they're not the medical doctor. Can you just tell them that if it is okay for them to go get the flu shot at the Publix or the Walmart or the Walgreens or the CVS, because they are pharmacists that are giving the actual vaccination?
Right. And so pharmacists, we have statutory authority to provide vaccinations for several different diseases, but especially with flu season, you know, please visit your pharmacy. We are licensed, we are trained. They actually, a couple years ago, have started incorporating into pharmacy schools. They incorporate a class where interns can also, you know, be able to get certified to immunize. And so it's something that they're starting early. We do want to make sure that people understand the pharmacists can do it. And as I mentioned, pharmacists are the most accessible health professional. You do not have to get on a waiting list. You do not have to wait 3 months to see the doctor.
Right.
Just go into your pharmacy, to Publix, to CVS. All of these different places are offering flu clinics, especially during flu season. So please do not think that you pharmacists. They are trained. We are certified. We are allowed by the state of Florida to provide those immunizations. And it's interesting that you mentioned, Mathias, that people don't see pharmacists as doctors. And that there's, you know, this difference with the medical doctors. But, you know, we go to school for 4 years, we go on rotations, we learn about the body, we learn about disease states, and we learn about the drugs. And so, you know, we have the same baseline understanding of most of those things. The difference is going to be, you know, if you go into the medical doctor field, there's several additional years of residencies that they have to complete. And so they're able to get a little bit more hands-on experience. Some doctors could be in school for 10 plus years, depending on if they decide to specialize. And so pharmacists, like I said, we go to school for 4 years, we study this information, we get the training, we get the hands-on experience. And so don't be alarmed to go see your pharmacist to get your flu shot, especially during this time.
Right. But I'm glad you're explaining that, because it's the general miseducation, misconceptions, or ignorance about what pharmacists do. And, you know, especially if you're from the streets, because you're used to hearing street pharmacist, street pharmacist, street pharmacist. So you automatically connecting a specific, like, what, you know, drugs that help to heal, but you connect drugs with pharmacists. And it's like, all right, well, let's break this barrier. Let's get a lot more information. So with that being said, public health pharmacy versus, I guess we could say, regular pharmacy. So what is public health pharmacy as opposed to the normal pharmacy that we would encounter or see on a regular basis? Like, what are the differences? What are there things that public health pharmacists do that the regular pharmacists won't do? Or is there a different outlook or goals that you have as public health pharmacists?
So to kind of break it down in the most simple form, there is a difference between the public health pharmacy and your regular pharmacy. Mm-hmm. So when we think of the regular pharmacy, we can start there. So that's going to be your large chain retail pharmacies, your CVS's, your Walgreens, your Rite Aid, and then you have your grocery chain pharmacies like Publix and Winn-Dixie. I think there's still some Winn-Dixie pharmacies hanging around as well. And then you also have Walmart, of course, and then Target Pharmacy, which I believe now is CVS Health within Target. And so those pharmacies have a wide variety of medications for just about most medical conditions that you can think of. They're very open in what they offer and what they can dispense. But then when you think about public health is a little bit different in its approach. So public health looks at the community as a whole as the patient. And so they want to create and maintain healthy communities. And so in a public health pharmacy, we are going to be looking at those conditions or illnesses or diseases that specific populations as a whole. And so to give an example, you have tuberculosis, which is considered a public health issue if there's an outbreak, right? Mm-hmm. So tuberculosis is a communicable disease, which means that it can be spread from person to person. And so when there's an outbreak, this can affect a large community of people and pose a severe threat to the overall health of that particular area. And at the public health pharmacies, such as the one that we have here at the Florida Department of Health, we're able to create programs that are able to combat this issue, including offering medication. And so just to kind of make it plain, you have the public health pharmacy that's looking at what are those things that affect large communities of people, what can we do, what can we institute, what can we apply to create and maintain this healthy community, whereas your regular pharmacies are going to be more specifically based on individual patients that come in and out.
Okay, that makes sense.
It does.
That does make sense, because now when I go back, after you do the explanation, I go back and I think public health. Oh yeah, they're making sure that the public, like as the whole, is taken care of rather than just the individual. So I appreciate that definition.
Me too, because that helps you understand that, especially when people pick majors, they really don't know what I'm thinking. I can only work in retail. But for someone like myself, if I decide to go into pharmacy, the community will be the way I go, because I enjoy more of the community aspect, the outreach, the education, that piece. And I'm really not an office type kind of guy where I just want to sit behind a computer. I do love that patient interaction and those things. So it helps you open your eyes up to the world of pharmacy, especially with it being Women in Pharmacy Day and Pharmacy Month. It lets those little girls out there know that, hey, I could actually do something in the community and still make a difference, as well as being a PhD or a PharmD, and just say, hey, I can be a doctor, but I don't have to be a medical doctor. And just like how you reference back to yourself with you like the community part, that part, but you really can't do the blood, guts, and gore part of it. So
I'm with you.
It helps you be that doctor, but still able to help in that community and still have that one-on-one with the patients. So I do like that aspect of it. So thank you so much for breaking that part down for us.
Right. So, as I said earlier, you're a pharmaceutical program manager with the Department of Health. What does that mean?
Yeah, because you're a program manager. I mean, you run something or you supervise something, but how does that help with pharmacy? Like, what is it?
All right. So Within the Department of Health, we have different organizational structures, and we have divisions and bureaus. And so I am the Pharmaceutical Program Manager for the Bureau of Public Health Pharmacy within the Department of Health. It's a mouthful. So what that means is I oversee our statewide pharmaceutical programs, and we have over 10 programs that we provide medications for throughout the entire state. And these programs were created for patients, as I mentioned earlier, who are maybe have little to no income, who don't have insurance, or who maybe are underinsured in certain situations, transient populations, etc. And we actually don't determine eligibility for the programs here. That's actually going to be done at the local county health department. And by the time the patient gets medications from us, they've already gone through that eligibility process, which usually is providing financial documentation and maybe some other things. So we don't really handle that part. We kind of leave it to those that work at the county health departments to do all of that for us. But as I mentioned, we are a statewide operation. And so there's 67 counties in the state of Florida. And in every county, there's at least one county health department. So in your bigger counties, there's going to be obviously more than one, but there's at least one in every county health department. And so a patient can go into the county health department, and if they meet those eligibility criteria, as I mentioned, it's usually some type of financial status situation, then they can receive medications from us by way of mail. So we're a mail order pharmacy, which means that we don't have patients to come directly in our facility, but everything that we do here and dispense is going to be mailed out. So it can go to the patient's house, or if maybe there's a situation where they don't want medications being delivered to their house because they want to remain confidential with whatever it is that they're taking, or if they prefer to have the medications sent to their county health department where they can pick it up and kind of be anonymous, or we have some patients that we've mailed medications to their doctor's office because they see their doctor regularly and they, feel it's better to just pick up their medications while they're getting their follow-up visit. And so we allow for patients to really choose where they want their medications to go, which I would say is a benefit of being a mail order pharmacy, so that we can kind of, send it wherever you need to go. And I think that's important. That's convenient for the patient. So we have patients that, maybe live here in Tallahassee. They might be here for school, and they may relocate back home during the summer semester. And so as long as your eligibility does not change, regardless of where you are in the state, you can continue to receive medications from us. Another thing is we have some patients who actually are going to their primary care provider that is not at the Department of Health. So we have some patients that go to neighborhood medical center and are seen by a provider, or they may go to CarePoint, or they may have another outside provider that they see, which is fine. But as long as you have the prescription and you can enroll in the program, you can also receive medications from us. Right. Now, I do want to point out that there's some programs that are federally funded, and so when you start talking about federal dollar, you have to be very careful and making sure that you're following those strict guidelines. And so for those programs, you actually have to be seen by someone at the county health department. Right. And so we do have patients that can go to Leon County Health Department and be seen and get medications as well. So it really just depends on what service that you're interested in. That will determine whether or not you can continue to see your outside provider, or you have to see a DOH provider. But regardless of that circumstance, you have to be considered a patient of the Department of Health, which all that means is that you just have to get into our electronic medical record system, which is our way of basically, showing who we service. So as long as you're in that system, then we recognize you as a Department of Health client. And so you're able to get medication. So some of the services that we offer, I mentioned it's over 10, and I'm not going to name all 10, but I will do like some of our major ones, and maybe people that are listening might recognize some of these as I talk about them. But the first one is our family planning services. So we do offer birth control pills. We offer long-acting contraception, such as Nexplanon or Liletta. And we also offer some other birth control methods as well. So if you are a female and you are interested in finding ways to get on some type of form of contraception, this may be a program for you. And we also provide for our patients with diabetes, we have an insulin distribution program. And so if you are prescribed insulin and you may have some issues affording your insulin, then you can certainly apply for that particular program. We also have a program for patients with epilepsy or seizure disorders through the Epilepsy Foundation, We have a tuberculosis program. So for those patients that unfortunately have tuberculosis, whether it's active or latent tuberculosis, you can get medications through our direct observed therapy program, or DOT for short. And we also provide medications for the Department of Corrections too.
Okay.
And so that's something that is very unique as well to what we do here, is we're able to repackage medications and send to those correctional institutions throughout the entire state. And then lastly, I'll say we offer medications for PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylaxis, as well as the HIV test and treat program. And so I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago, I think it was back in 2018, when the former State Surgeon General, Dr. Celeste Phillip, had basically said that she wanted a statewide PrEP initiative. And so all 67 counties were supposed to be able to provide PrEP for patients. And so we actually supply that. That comes from us. So again, we make sure that every county health department has bottles of Truvada. Right now, that's the only medication that's available through the PrEP program. But who knows, in the near future, that might change. We might be able to offer Descovy as well. But right now, we only offer Truvada through the PrEP program.
That's what's up.
Okay. I have a question about that.
I wrote it down, so y'all better have wrote that down.
I have a question, because I know dealing with some clients and things like that, you mentioned that you're a mail order pharmacy.
Mm-hmm.
So how safe is a mail order pharmacy? Because, I'm used to going to pick up my medication from the store. And you telling me they're going to call me on the phone and I do everything on the phone and then it's mailed to me. How safe is that? Because what happens if I don't, Like, my questions were the patients asked is, what happens if I don't get it through it's not at my door? What happened to my medicine? Or why is it mailed, or is it caught up in the mail? It might take a day or two or longer than just going to pick it up. How safe is a mail order pharmacy?
So it's very rare for things to really get lost in the mail. I'm not going to say it's never happened before, because those things are really out of our control. I mean, we try to put things into place as best as we can, such as requiring signatures for delivery on certain medications. But ultimately, if something like that were to happen, we would just have the patient to fill out a police report and we'll replenish the medication. I mean, I know it's scary to think about something getting lost, especially when you have confidential information and you have medications that are inside. And so that could be a little alarming for some. But again, we do try to offer other services as well. So if you prefer to pick up from the county health department, we can send it to the county health department and someone there will be able to receive that medication, store it in a safe place. A lot of county health departments have medication rooms that they lock and seal. And so we do offer that. But as far as the potential of something being lost, it rarely happens, but it is possible to happen. But we don't want that to be a deterrent for anyone as well. But because we are a statewide operation, You know, obviously we're in Tallahassee, so we wouldn't be able to drive something down to the Florida Keys. So we're really trusting our carriers to make sure it gets there. But again, if a patient is really concerned about that, we'll definitely work with them to try to find something else that we can do. We also have other pharmacies that are located within the county health department throughout the state. And those are going to be in your major cities like Jacksonville, Tampa, the Fort Lauderdale area, Miami-Dade area. And so if a patient lives around those areas and they prefer to actually go into the pharmacy to pick up their medications, they could utilize those pharmacies within the county health department. We also supply medications to those pharmacies as well. So we're still interconnected. Those pharmacies are standalone pharmacies in that they do operate a little bit differently. They're still within the purview of the Department of Health, but they're more so under that particular county. But that is an option if a patient just really does not want to utilize the mail order service and they don't feel comfortable, then they can, you know, like I said, go into those county health department pharmacies that are in some of those major cities and be able to get services there.
Cool. And is this in conjunction with the Pharmaceutical Outreach Clinical Program?
So that's a little bit different.
Okay.
That's a little bit different. Our clinical outreach programs is actually something new. And it's new, like within the last year.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that we are trying to expand. So even though we're a large operation, even though we touch so many different pharmaceutical programs, we do not want to stop there. We want to continue to grow. We want to continue to expand, and we want to get out into the community. And so with our clinical outreach programs, I'll talk about our newest initiative, which is the Diabetes Empowerment Education Program.
Uh-oh.
It sounds real fancy, right? So what this has allowed us to do is to create a pharmacist-led diabetes program. Okay. And we are, as pharmacists, as well as some of our pharmacy technicians, actually are able to receive certifications to become what we call peer trainers or peer educators. And we're able to go out into the community and provide these diabetes education classes. These classes are intended for patients with type 2 diabetes or those who maybe care for someone with type 2 diabetes, or even if you have pre-diabetes, meaning you aren't necessarily diagnosed with diabetes, but you are at high risk of getting diabetes. So this program could be for all of those and in between, right? And 6-week curriculum where we have each week you're learning about different things. You might be learning about how to test your blood sugar one week. You might be learning about what does it mean to have a high A1C, or what are some healthy foods that you can eat, or what are some exercise activities that you can do to stay healthy. And so we're very proud of this program because, again, it allows for the pharmacists to expand and get out of this pill pushing role and do what we are trained to do, which is to educate. You know, pharmacists are educators at the crux of it. We are educators. And so it's our job to provide the community with health education as best as we can. And so, this diabetes curriculum is something that we want to roll out as soon as COVID is over. Right. We want to go full steam ahead. Right now, classes are suspended because of, obviously the situation, but we want to hurry up and get out there and try to empower people and let them know that you can take control of diabetes. Diabetes does not have to control you. You do not have to succumb to diabetes. We want to empower. We want them to be motivated. We want them to be on ways to improve their health. We're all about improving health outcomes. And so we're targeting the Tallahassee and surrounding rural. I always have trouble saying that word.
Rural.
Y'all know what I'm trying to say.
You say all that word.
So we're targeting those areas. And so if there's anybody listening that feels that they would benefit from this program, it's very hands-on, it's very interactive. You're going to love it. When I was training for it, I had to go through the curriculum myself. So I'm telling you firsthand, it's very fun. It's not your typical sit down and get lectured for 2 hours. Like, you're actually doing things, you're talking to people, you're engaging with each other, you're sharing testimonials, which is really important as well, because you may not necessarily know what to do, but you might have someone that's sitting next to you that's had diabetes for 20 plus years, and there's nothing that you could tell them, right, that could change how they feel. They know, look, this diabetes thing, I got this. Like, it don't mean nothing. I'm still out here living my life, and I do this and I do that. And it might encourage and motivate someone. And so we definitely want to try to get this out as soon as we can, like I said. So if there's anyone that wants to have this program, maybe come to your workplace, or if you're the leader of your health ministry at your church and you think your church would benefit from this 6-week program, or your school, or wherever you are, definitely let me know. I can give my contact information. I guess, are we going to have something at the end where I can?
Yes.
Okay, great. So definitely feel free to reach out to me if you are interested in this program, and we will come to you in a hurry after COVID.
Yeah. And if you have a flyer or anything we can post, maybe we can try to post it out with our social media and things like that to help drum up some, not business, but to drum up the word about it so people can know, because diabetes is a real big issue, especially in the African American communities. And we're just trying to bring the education piece to it. Hence, the podcast says your mind, your body, and your soul. So once you have to take care of your whole holistic approach of your body. So if you have diabetes, it affects your mental capacity, so it affects your oral health, it affects everything that goes on with your body. And so that's what we're trying to do. So if you give us the information, we could probably post it in the link below, especially with your contact information. So when we post the actual podcast, all the information will be linked at the bottom for them. And they'll be able to contact you and do everything.
It's going to be all in the description.
Okay. Awesome. Appreciate that.
So, you talked about the pharmaceutical outreach and stuff like that, but the one thing that is near and dear to me and Joe's heart is HIV. So, can you explain to us, like, what's the difference between, because in your bio you said that you were a HIV pharmacist. Can you explain what the difference between an HIV pharmacist is and a regular pharmacist?
Sure. So a regular pharmacist, we are required, going through pharmacy school and then having to take our NAPLEX, which is the licensure exam, and what we have to pass in order for us to become a pharmacist and legally practice in the state. So we have to have your, I guess, baseline, or at least a general understanding of major medical conditions, including HIV. And when you have an HIV pharmacist, the difference is that pharmacist actually is certified through the American Academy of HIV Medicine, and they are considered specialized. So there's additional training, there's additional education that's involved. There's an exam that you have to take every 3 years, because as years go by, there's more information that comes out about HIV. There's new drugs that come out, and so you definitely want to make sure that you're staying current and up to date with anything that has changed. So you do have to go through that recertification process every year. But the good thing about the HIV pharmacist is, even though as the pharmacist, they do understand the medications, but there's just this added layer of expertise when it comes to HIV treatment, right, that an HIV pharmacist can offer to the patient care team. So if you have a provider who maybe, kind of knows about HIV, but they don't really have that integral extra information, the HIV pharmacist could be beneficial in that regard, because they're able to really talk about the medications on a deeper level.
Okay. So what is the HIV Section Medication Formulary workgroup? That sounds like a lot.
It sounds like a lot, but it's very simple. It's a group of individuals through the Department of Health that come from a wide variety of backgrounds and experience. So you have people who work with HIV, but they could be doctors. We have nurses. We have pharmacists that are on the team. We also have like some program and section administrators within the Department of Health that serve on this committee. And basically, they just review medications that are on the formulary. And a formulary is basically just a list of approved medications that are available. And so this group looks at those medications that maybe are just now and might be beneficial to make available for patients with HIV, or they might review medications that maybe have been out for a really long time, but they're not really used anymore because there's been more options that have come out that are more safer, that are less side effects. And so those people are making those decisions whether to add or to take away these medications. And they oversee the formulary for the ADAP program, which is the AIDS Drug Assistance Program, as well as the Test and Treat program and the PrEP program as well.
Okay.
That's what's up. Because I always wondered what that was. Because I've always heard about it and heard surface level information, but never a full explanation of the formulary work group. So that makes sense.
So are you able to tell us, I understand that you told us earlier about why you wanted to become a pharmacist, but when you say you got a special certification to HIV, what made you get that certification to HIV? What drew you to HIV?
So I remember when I was in my interview for pharmacy school, this was part of the reason why I didn't get in that first year. So I'm gonna let y'all into what happened. This was a traumatic experience I want to add to.
Right.
But it was part of my growth. So I went through it, I learned from it, and I'm here now, right? So one of the questions that I got asked in my pharmacy school interview was about health disparities. And hopefully this is a no judgment zone, but
Right.
I had never heard of that. You know, I'm from Jacksonville. I don't think that I came from a sheltered environment, but because I didn't know what that was, I had never heard of it. When I got asked that question, my response was something that I'm not proud of. And it's really because it came out of ignorance, not because I knew it was there and I didn't believe in it. It was because I just didn't know what it meant. And so now I understand that health disparities are those differences in health outcomes that can exist between different racial and ethnic groups, between age, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, and HIV, unfortunately, is a health disparity. It largely affects the African American community, which is people like me. And so that meant something. To have something that affects people of color and minorities and people that I can relate to was something that I wanted to be able to take part in and say, what can I do to help this fight against this disease? When I was in school and I learned about HIV and I really studied what it is and how it affects the body, and unfortunately what it can do to the body when it's not treated, no one should have to go through that.
Right.
And so now we are in a position where so much has come out, so much information, medications, research is being done to where HIV is no longer a death sentence like it was, 40 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're able to treat it. We're able to screen and detect for it. We're able to provide patients with options to get help and to get into care. And so I really was inspired by the work of advocates, including the Joseph Wards and the Mathias Sweets.
Appreciate
You guys,
Thank you.
I don't think I've ever told you, but I want to take this opportunity while I have both of you to just say how I admire both of you. I admire what you've done, what you've been able to accomplish. I've known you guys for like 5 years or so now. And every time that I see you, you guys are working. And I appreciate it. I love it. I admire folks who are willing to break their backs and get out there and face these obstacles and knock on people's doors and do everything that you all do to fight against HIV. And so people like that, activists and advocates and community educators and community health leaders, and I definitely don't want to name all of those that are out there, but there's just so many that you guys together, you are the reason why we're here. And so I can smile and look to the future, and the future is to a cure. And it's going to be with a combined effort of all of us to come together to continue to educate, to continue to fight, and to continue to stop this, stop the stigma. Because just like diabetes and just like hypertension, you can live a healthy life. You can live a long, normal life. And so I'm honored and grateful to be able to be in a profession where I can help by educating. I can help by providing medications. I can help by assisting in screenings and preventions and those kind of things. And so, like I said, I just wanted to appreciate you guys for everything, because I really do look up to you.
Well, thank you.
Enjoy this partnership that we have, and you know, I'm always here if you ever need something. I definitely am excited about the future with us working together. So so stay tuned out there, listeners.
Right.
Right.
Definitely, we definitely appreciate that. And we'll just say this, be transparent as well. We appreciate that because we ain't gonna lie, we feel like a lot of times that we're just out here and nobody cares. Like we're putting our best foot forward and nobody cares. So when we do hear things like that from someone like you, we definitely appreciate it. It really means a lot.
Yeah, because we do the work because we want to do the work. We don't do the work to get the recognition. And it just feels good to say, and it helps validate some of the things that we're doing, is that people are actually giving us this shout out to say, hey, you're doing a good job. Doing a good job goes way more than sometimes getting an award or being recognized for what you're doing. But just for somebody to take the time out of their day to say, thank you for doing what you do, I really appreciate it. It means a lot. That goes a long way with us. And so we don't do the work to get the recognition. We do the work to help the people, and that's what we really want to do. And we thank you for acknowledging that.
But also, I did want to kind of double back, because you talked about your interview and not really understanding the health disparities. Be transparent again. I'm from South Side of Tallahassee, so I knew you had poor people and you had rich people, but we had no idea what health disparities were either. Like, I really had no idea what a health disparity was until we got into this field, until we started doing this work. So I can understand where you're coming from if somebody asking you that question and it's something you're not familiar with. You've seen it, you've seen the divide, but you don't understand the divide. So I do get where you're coming from with that. So
it was something that I really I was so embarrassed. Like it was to the point where I don't even remember exactly what I said, but I must have said something that struck a nerve, because the people that were interviewing me kind of cut their eyes at me like, and where are you from? And I'm like, Jacksonville. And they're like, oh, well, you must have been sheltered, little girl. I was like, oh, okay. So I had to really go back and like do some research. Like, okay, what is this health disparities thing about? And then once I saw it, and then especially in FAMU pharmacy school, because that's something that our teachers used to eat and sleep health disparities in every class. There wasn't a lecture that we had where it wasn't discussed at some point. Right. And so now it's like, I can't not see it. I'm exposed to it. I see it all the time. I see it through the patients that we have. I see it through the events that we have out in the community, and it's there. And so what can I do as a pharmacist to bring awareness to people that were like me, that didn't know, that didn't think it existed, or maybe just had no idea anything you know. And so that's where this education piece, like I said, it really comes into play, because, you know, in order for us to help fight against these chronic diseases like diabetes and hypertension that affects the African American community, we first have to understand who it affects the most and try to tailor and target those populations with some of these outreach programs, like our diabetes program, so that we could try to, you know, fight this thing together.
Right.
Sorry.
Phone call.
Message. So to get back into it, what tips could you give patients in the community for helping them to ensure that they get the best services when they speak to a pharmacist? Whether it's the local pharmacist that you know, that you don't know, or if you just have a question, what are some tips, or, you know, old school say pearls of wisdom and things like that, to go back to give the people a better understanding so they can get the maximum use of what your services are as a pharmacist?
A few years ago, I gave a presentation at, I think it was the Old West Baptist Convention. And so my presentation was about pretty much just that, understanding the pharmacist and what you can do to maximize your experience with the pharmacist, and just understanding some of the responsibilities of the pharmacist as well as the patient, because there is some responsibilities of the patient as well. But my presentation was called, and don't laugh because it's corny, but the presentation was called 2 Peas in a Pod, and the P stood for patient and pharmacist, and it was looking at the patient pharmacist relationship. So we hear about patient provider, but this was a patient pharmacist relationship. And so the patient part came first in the title because the patient and the patient safety should come first, right? So we that whatever we're doing, these medications that we're giving these clients, because these are drugs, and drugs are chemicals, they're foreign chemicals that you're putting in your body. And we want to make sure that whatever that the patient is putting in their body is safe for them to take. It's not going to hurt them, it's not going to affect them. And so the first tip that I would say would be to get to know your pharmacist and establish a relationship. And this is obviously easier said than done, but communication is so key and it's so critical, because the pharmacist is the person who you're talking to about your medications. You're talking to them, trying to get as much information as you can. Some of those things that we talked about earlier, like understanding what it's for, how to take it, when to use it, side effects that you need to be made aware of. And it can be very intimidating when you have a prescription for something. Maybe it's something that you've never taken before. You go to your pharmacy and you're giving this prescription, which has basically your medical information, right? And so medical information, depending on what it is, can be very sensitive, and you don't really want to talk about it if it's something that, you know, you're kind of like, I don't want everybody to know. And so when you don't know the person behind the counter with the white coat, you may not necessarily feel comfortable talking to them. And so it's very important to establish that relationship and to be able to have that open dialogue and that open discussion about your concerns. One of the requirements when you go to the pharmacy and you're checking out is they ask you, do you have any questions for the pharmacist? And sometimes you don't know what to ask because you may not know what's going on. You don't really know what you don't know, right? And so just because you don't think of something in that particular moment does not mean that you can't double back, or like I mentioned earlier, call. You know, it doesn't mean that you can't ask those questions. Just because you walk out of the pharmacy does not mean that's it. You're on your own. The pharmacist is there. The pharmacist is there to answer your questions. They want to answer your questions about the medication that you're receiving. No question is a dumb question, right? You have one life to live and one body to live in. So it's important that you take care of it. I do want to say, and we've all done it sometimes, I've done it as well in pharmacy school, to avoid Dr. Google and some of these other sites that are out there, because they will have you thinking that you're dying from every single thing, that you're going to have an arm fall off, that you're going to be foaming at the mouth if you take certain things. And so you definitely want to talk to your pharmacist to kind of weed through some of those things and give you some credible information, because there's a lot of information out there, and sometimes those sites aren't really regulated by someone with a degree or scientific background. So just kind of be careful when you're trying to fish through the internet for certain information. You're never going to get better information than your doctor and your pharmacist, right? There's also literature out there as well. So I would recommend, if you're someone that likes to read, then there's definitely a lot of clinical trials and studies that are published that you can read just to get some background information. But as far as just Googling every single thing, probably not a good idea. So the next tip that I would say would be to provide your pharmacist with a full drug profile. And this includes just listing out those medications that you're taking, those prescription drugs. But a lot of the times we also forget about the over-the-counter medications. So things like your over-the-counter pain pills or your over-the-counter allergy meds, different supplements that you may be taking, different herbals that you may be taking. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes those can interact with each other. And so again, the pharmacist can kind of help you explain those things and try to, help you space out maybe those medications that might have a potential to interact with each other. And then the last thing that I want to say, and again, in honor of American Pharmacist Month, I do want to ask to be patient with your pharmacists. Pharmacists are under a lot of pressure and a lot of time constraints, and there's a lot of metrics that are being imposed on pharmacists to get a certain amount of flu shots, fill a certain amount of prescriptions, because their corporate offices are looking at those things and trying to use that to measure whether or not this pharmacist is working out, or maybe they probably aren't a good fit. And so so there's a lot of things that go into play in especially your retail pharmacies. But above all of that is always going to be patient safety. And I can't emphasize that enough. Patient safety is going to be number one. And so although it may be said, and I've heard it as well, that it doesn't take all day to fill a prescription, why does it take that long? What are you doing back there? All you're doing is putting some pills in a bottle. But as we talked about earlier, there's so many other things that are going on. You have the pharmacist who is juggling different customer calls. You have the pharmacist who's verifying your prescription and 100 other people's prescriptions. They're on the phone, on hold with the insurance company because they're trying to figure out why the insurance company rejected the claim. They're monitoring the other pharmacy technicians that are working, because again, you have one pharmacist, but you also have technicians and maybe a pharmacist intern that are in there as well. So you have to keep your eye and make sure that they're not potentially creating a situation that could lead to a medication error. They're also maybe on the phone with your doctor, because while they were doing all that and they were looking at your prescription, they noticed that the doctor made a mistake on the instructions. And so again, the pharmacist is juggling all of that. But at the end of the day, they want to make sure that you as the patient are safe and that you are receiving the correct medication, the correct dose, the correct strength. They're looking at all of that information. And so I would rather for a patient to wait just a few extra more minutes, because that minute or 2 or 5 extra minutes could be the difference between you getting the correct medication and you not getting the correct medication.
Right. I hope everybody's paying attention as she gives this information, because it's not just her opinion that she's giving. It's from experience. It's from working with other pharmacists. It's the information that she's learned over time. And you did a great job of explaining what you do, what the pharmacy is, how pharmacy works with the community, how the pharmacy works with HIV. And thank you for giving that great information, because I know a lot of people are going to learn a lot from this particular podcast. So how can people get in contact with you? Somebody see this and they say, she's so smart, I want to have her come talk to my people, or they want more information. How do people get in contact with you?
So my email address, and I should have had one of my business cards, but it's okay. My email address is my first name, which is Danyelle, D-A-N-Y as in yo-yo, E-L-L-E .Williams, W-I-L-L-I-A-M-S at F as in Frank, L as in Larry, health, HEALTH.gov, or you can email, or excuse me, that is my email. You can call me at 850-922-9036. And so please reach out to me.
Yes.
If you are interested, as I mentioned earlier, in our diabetes program, or if you just want more information about some of the pharmaceutical programs that I talked about earlier, definitely give me a call, send me an email. If I don't have the answer, I will do everything in my power to get you the answer or to get you to the appropriate person. So please feel free to contact me. Thank you guys again for just honoring this this Women Pharmacists Day with having me come and speak to everyone. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed this conversation. So thank you very much, Mathias and Joe, and definitely, like I said, looking forward to additional opportunities to work with you guys as soon as COVID lets us be great.
I know, right? I know, right?
We could be great again.
Yeah. Well, you know, you always on my list of people to work with, because even when we were putting our ideas together for this podcast, your name, I got a list and your name was on that list. So we respect you, we appreciate you, and we're thankful and just totally grateful for you being within our community and us being able to just learn from you and just watch you do your thing and just blossom. So we are definitely proud of you out there doing your thing.
Oh, thank you. Right.
And we really appreciate everything that you do in the community, as well as helping us, because we do call on you a lot to do things like our healthy happy hours and things like that. So we do appreciate you, and we really want to thank you for taking time out your busy day to come here and talk to the community with us. So we really do appreciate you, and we thank you.
Right. So y'all make sure, like, comment, subscribe, share this video. Like I said, if you like, you comment, and you subscribe, and you share it, other people can see it too. And a lot of great information was given. Anchor.fm, you can check us out there. nmcpodcast.com, check us out there. All major podcast outlets, we are there. You can listen to us. This is Mind, Your Body, and Soul, the Healthy Podcast, where we focus on making sure people become the healthiest versions of themselves. I am Joseph Ward. He is Mathias Sweet. And once again, thank you to our lovely guest, Miss Danyelle Williams. And we'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good day.